Hi everyone, welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. It is January 16th, 2018. Happy New Year, Michael. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you and to everyone out there.
It's been a month since we got together the last time, and so much has happened, I don't even know where to begin.
It's really hard to find a single subject to talk about. There's so many aspects of Japanese politics that have been shifting in the period since the last time we spoke, in particular because of that election that they had last year in October. That has reset all kinds of pieces in ways that were really not predictable, even as we were speaking in December.
Right, and you can't talk about politics without also talking about how society is moving as well. We were talking earlier about wearing kimono and welcoming everybody on New Year's. And did you order your kimono? Did it come?
Well, we were going to do it in terms of having the coming of age day, which is Seiji no Hi,
a national holiday.
National holiday, but things got kind of messed up. So here we are a week later,
right,
and we have more to talk about.
There's a lot going on, and there's something going on in the sumo world. We're not we're aficionados of sumo. We watch it just like everybody else does, but there's been something of a tectonic shift going on there.
It's really, really weird what is going on in the sumo world. The current tournament just began on just 2 days ago.
Hatsubasha, the Emperor's Cup.
Yeah, that. And we're -1 of the Yokozuna. Harumafuji resigned in disgrace after beating up a fellow Mongolian wrestler, one who was not from his particular stable, his beya, in fact, who was a member of the stable of the overall Rijicho, the director of the Sumo Federation, Takanohana, the former wrestler Takanohana. He is now in hot water. The referees are in hot water. The other Yokozuna the Mongolian Yokozuna have had their pay docked. It's a big mess, and they're trying to put a new face, a clean face forward for January 2018. We'll see how it goes.
Let's just talk about it, encapsulate it a little bit for our viewers. There is an association of Mongol wrestlers. They all get together every once in a while. They have their drinking sessions or their groups. And apparently at one of these, maybe 8 or 9 of them were gathered together having a session, and they're turned into a little bit of a fight.
There was a internal fight between them, and one of the grand champions really wailed on a lower-ranked wrestler. Whatever object was used, some objects were used to beat this person.
Right, and the other wrestlers were kind of sitting there watching and nursing their drinks.
They eventually pulled the two of them out, and there had to be a hospital visit. Everything was hushed up.
Right.
And part of the hush-up, part of the cover-up, involved the Rijicho, Takanohana, who has been running away from the press ever since.
Okay.
And so he's on the outs, seemingly.
Well, he was actually...
He was brought in as a reformer.
Right.
From the previous administration, but that has all gone by the wayside. And there's really no center to the organization right now. It has various boards that control it, and everybody's watching from the outside, looking at this black box, trying to figure out how they're going to fix the problems that exist, but it's really uncertain right now with very little leadership in the organization.
Right. Let's parse it out just a tiny bit. So Takanohana was a Yokozuna, a very famous Yokozuna.
Very famous one.
And he has his own stable.
Yes, right.
And within his stable, I think there's only one foreign wrestler allowed per stable. And within his stable was one of the Mongolians who was
involved in the
altercation,
fracas.
right?
That's right. And so the police investigation was interfered with, that the hospital's activities were covered up. All of this looks terribly bad because violence in the sport is intrinsic in the sport, right, inside the ring, but it's not supposed to be there outside of the ring. Inside the practices are physically often very punishing, and there have been injuries and in fact deaths in the sumo world. In the case of death, there was a young man who was beaten to death by his stablemates with a baseball bat, which in some weird act of
training,
of retribution for some kind of infraction that he had done. So the sumo has been constantly trying to clean up its act, and that's what makes it interesting and difficult is that it is seen as the traditional sport.
Well,
in Japan.
It is a national sport. It receives tax payments for running the organization.
It's a national sport. It's overseen by the next ministry, the ministry Ministry of Education is also in charge of sports.
Right.
It's supposed to be an exemplar of Japanese virtues. The Yokozuna in particular are supposed to possess sort of this twinkly effect called hinkaku of true excellence. But they get involved have been getting involved in all kinds of scrapes, and particularly the Mongolian wrestlers who have come into the sport and dominated it for the last 15 years, absolutely taking over the top ranks of the sport. There's only one Japanese Yokozuna at this time, and he has been largely a disappointment after suffering a major injury. In his first tournament after becoming a Yokozuna, he won that tournament, but nevertheless, he's been out ever since. And on Sunday, he lost his initial bout. It looks like he's never going to get back into shape. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. Therefore, the Japanese national sport has been owned by these non-Japanese. Many of them take Japanese citizenship and become and culturally become Japanese, but they often have very close ties back to Mongolia. The other aspect, of course, is that it's so traditional. It does go back centuries, even more so than the other approved traditional arts. There are a set of traditional arts that are actually taught in the middle schools as a part of the curriculum, and this change in the curriculum came during the first Abe administration. So the Abe and his people also have a vested interest in what is going on regarding this traditional sport. They have an interest that sumo retains some sense of being a Japanese and noble endeavor. It's not been very Japanese, and it's not been very noble. It is also, in addition, it has always had a problem in terms of the what's called the yaocho effect. That there is an incentive toward the end of a tournament to throw matches and for there to be cash exchanges. If you let our wrestler win, we will pay you some money. That has always been another dark side to the sport. And if you look at the statistical win-loss records, it still looks as though that's going on. So there's the contradiction.
Right.
Tradition, purity. You have to throw salt to purify the ring.
Women aren't allowed on the dohyo.
Women aren't allowed because women menstruate.
Yes.
They will soil the place. And at the same time, it's a bunch of guys, barely clothed guys, slapping each other around, and who drink a lot and get into trouble a lot. So there's the rub.
Yes, not to conflagulate the issues, but also one of the referees was caught in a little bit of an issue.
Oh yeah, there's also the issue of sexual abuse of a minor, which you would think the referees can stay out of the fray as well, but that's not the case in the case of the sport. So the sport is laboring. It's really suffering from a lot of dark points. And
you know, the irony here, though, Michael, to interrupt you, I apologize.
No, please don't.
Takanohana was brought in as a reformer, and it seems that the forces of reform and the forces of tradition are clashing, and we're seeing this clash played out now in real life.
When you see the board of directors of the Sumo Federation, you say, where did they get these ancient fossils? They are incredibly old people. Well, they're supposed to be preserving some kind of tradition, but it seems as though they are just not capable of being proactive about the kinds of issues that will be affecting the sport. And as a consequence, this emblem of Japan is constantly getting sullied.
As a consequence of him, Takanohana, calling the police instead of having the Sumo Kyokai handle this issue with the fight of the Mongolian wrestlers, he has lost his seat as a board member.
There's his rise and fall are stuff of tabloids, and indeed the tabloids have been following him ever since he was the boyfriend of Miyazawa Rie way back when.
Remember that well.
That was a long, long time ago, but he's always been in the limelight. His father was an ozeki, and his brother was also a fabulous wrestler, Wakanohana. He is part of the problem. That he was brought in as a reformer got some. There were a lot of heads that were tilted to the side. This is the Reform Party, but that was the way it was done, and that was the way it was framed. Now it looks as though there is no narrative for them to follow.
Well, apologies for our listeners or our viewers who are hoping for the political slant on this. It's just an interesting aspect of what's going on in Japanese society that does have, some sort of a political implication as well.
It's really political in that it is a part of the education sports complex and the idea of Japanese national identity. They certainly try to portray it as a Japanese national sport. But unfortunately for that narrative of national essence and national purity and national identity, this is a sport dominated by people from other countries.
Thank you, Michael. Hopefully this has been informative and insightful to you. Things going on in the political world also reflect in the sumo world as well. Please stay tuned. This one's not finished.